Ahoy! Welcome back to Leia's Library. Find yourself a cozy corner, get yourself some tea, and let's get started. This video will be going over all of the books that I read in April of this year. And I did it! It's finally out on time! Please somebody be proud of me. Let's get started. So, the first book that I finished this month was At Left Brain Turn Right by Anthony Mindel. This is a nonfiction self-help book. This is a guide to help you overcome the left side of your brain, aka the more logical and analytical one, and instead help you embrace the right side, or the creative side, in order to unlock your creative potential and help you to stop sabotaging yourself from living your best creative life. I have never read a self-help book before. I've always kind of been led to believe that they're a bit garbage or they're a scam. But this one was recommended and lent to me by a friend, so I'm not gonna say no, because they strongly recommended it and they got a lot from it. So I read it and I actually liked it. It says it's for everyone, but it is more focused on actors and artists. The author himself is an actor, so. But there were actually quite a few helpful things in there. Well, for one, because he is an actor, a lot of his examples are acting based, and I like his approach to acting. There are so many different schools of thought when it comes to acting, and a lot of them are unhealthy. But I like his take, which is where you bring yourself to the character instead of trying to turn yourself into the character, which I like that. I vibe with that. He also had a lot of helpful, actionable things that you can do when you're in a creative slump. I found some of them were really useful even if you're in, a regular depression kind of slump too. Obviously, nothing in this book is going to cure your depression or your anxiety, but there are some things in here that can help. And some of the things that are in this book are also things that my therapist has recommended for me when I start to feel like I'm going in a spiral. Things like going for a walk, or journaling, or even just writing anything. Just grab a pen, put it to paper, and just... That probably sounded terrible. Or just talking about your goals and your visions that you have for yourself. And again, none of those are going to cure you, but they are helpful for the short term, and maybe for the long term. I don't know, I'm not a therapist. One thing that I didn't like as much was that he sometimes says things as if they're concrete scientific facts, when I'm not so sure some of them are. For example, one of the exercises asks you to meditate and visualize your goals as you're meditating. They can be weekly goals, yearly goals, lifelong goals, anything, just something that you really, really want to happen. So he says to just sit and visualize your goal exactly as you want it to happen, and really let yourself feel the way you would feel in that moment, or the way you imagine you would feel in that moment, and just fully immerse yourself in what that will feel like. The reason he says to do this is because he says your thoughts have mass, and things with mass can affect their physical surroundings. So by strongly visualizing your goals, you can manifest them into reality. And listen, I'm no scientist. I have not looked into this outside of reading this book. But I am a little skeptical as to whether or not that is actually true. He did have a lot of quotes and references backing that up. I, for one, remain unconvinced. However, I do see value in doing that exercise anyway, even if it's not in the way that he intended. For one, as a very anxious person, it does sometimes help me to sit down and fully visualize how an event is going to go. And because I tend to have a very negative outlook on life, the universe, and everything, it does actually help to occasionally sit there and force myself to think about something in a positive light. I don't like the term force yourself, but like allow myself. That's a better word. It does help for me to sit and allow myself to feel positive things towards something that I really want. That might be really scary to me, but it's still something that I really want. And while I can't verify that your thoughts have mass, a more optimistic outlook on life is more likely to bring you success, I would say. When you're in a depression spiral, it kind of, takes everything along with it and leaves you completely unmotivated to work towards your goals. And everything can seem kind of pointless. But if visualizing your goals in detail and like visualizing them in a positive way actually happening to you, if that helps you feel a little bit more confident or at least a little bit less anxious about it, then you're more likely to, want to get up and go out and do it, right? So still worthwhile, I think, if not perhaps in the way that it is written. All in all, I like the majority of what he was saying in this book, and I found a lot of it very actually useful and helpful, even if I didn't always love the way that he was presenting it. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie O. It is a YA fantasy/mythology retelling. This is a retelling of the Shimchong myth from Korean folklore. So in the original myth, Shimchong is a young woman whose father becomes blind, and in order to help him regain his sight, she throws herself into the sea as a sacrifice. She throws herself into the sea to become the sea god's bride in hopes of restoring her father's sight. But the sea god, when she reaches the bottom of the ocean and finds him, the sea god recognizes the courage of her sacrifice and rewards her by making her the emperor's bride. And eventually, her father makes his way to the palace, and when they reunite, his sight returns. I think that's how it goes. I might have gotten some details wrong. I encourage you to go look it up for yourself so that you can get all the details right, and I am sorry if I messed something up. I only became aware of the Shimchong myth probably only a few months ago, so I may have some of the details wrong, and I am sorry. But it is a really nice folktale, so go look it up. In this retelling, Shimchong is actually saved from jumping into the ocean by Mina, who is a peasant girl, and Mina's brother is in love with Shimchong, and Shimchong is in love with him. They are mutual. It's a mutual thing. In order to save her brother and Shimchong from heartbreak at having to be separated because Shimchong is destined to be the sea god's bride this year, Mina jumps instead and is swept away to the spirit realm, only to find that the sea god has been put in this mysterious enchanted sleep. It took me a little while to get into it. I don't know if that was what actually had a slow start, or I just wasn't in a huge reading mood when I started reading it, so it took me a little while. But about midway through, I couldn't put it down. I will say that some of the characters develop friendships very quickly, or at least it felt like it, and it didn't really bother me because it is still sort of written as a fairy tale, and things just tend to progress faster in fairy tales. We don't have enough time. I think I mentioned this is a YA book, but it feels a little bit more middle grade to me. And that's not in any way a bad thing. I really like middle grade books. The reason I say that, on top of just it's not written typically how I would associate writing with YA, and it's also a lot less horny than most YA I read, to put it bluntly. One of the things I don't like about YA is that well, for one, there's usually a romance whether or not there needs to be a romance. And for two, because it's primarily written for teenagers and teenagers are going through their first bouts of hormones, everyone usually wants to rip each other's clothes off, and that's fine if you're into that. I really like clothes. And yeah, this doesn't have that so much. There is still a romance in here, but it's not that intense. I sound like such a prude. But, you know, all that aside, it is a really nice, fun read. I am actually adding this to my comfort books list, and I look forward to revisiting it in the future. Also, this cover is so pretty. Look how pretty that is. Not gonna lie, that's part of the reason why I bought it. But it paid off because it was really good. I really like it. And it's really pretty. 4 out of 5 stars. The last book that I read in April was The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. It is a sci-fi fantasy, high fantasy. How to explain this book? It is a story about a family of legendary warriors living in a very traditional village. Our two main characters are Mamoru and Misaki. Mamoru is a 14-year-old boy. He is the son of the village's most elite, strongest warrior. So he has a lot of pressure put on him to amount to something great, to carry on the family legacy. But he begins to question not only his place as a warrior, but also in general, because an outsider arrives and tells him that the empire he was basically bred to defend is not everything that he's been led to believe it is, and may or may not have been actively lying to him his whole life. Misaki is Mamoru's mother. She has a mysterious past that she's not allowed to talk about anymore, and that she has put behind her in order to become a housewife and mother. But with the threat of looming invasion from overseas, time is running out for Mamoru to prove himself and for Misaki to keep hiding from her past. I have been wanting to read this book for so long, but it was impossible to find, and then I finally got it for Christmas this year, and it was definitely worth the wait. I didn't realize it was a prequel spin-off. I think it's a prequel to another series by this author, M.L. Wong. But you don't need to read that series in order to understand this one. I did just fine. However, it is very dense. I mean, if you look at it, it's a chunk. How many pages does it have? 613 pages. There are a lot of characters. There are a lot of family histories to keep track of and character backstories. There's a lot of lore and magic and new words that you have to keep track of. It kind of gave me the Ember Blade by Chris Wooding vibes. In like, there are a lot of characters and a lot of new things that you're learning, and you just gotta pick it up as you go along and do your best. But if you're ready and willing to tackle that, then I would thoroughly recommend this. It is truly excellent. Misaki was my favorite. I love a good sword mom. We really need more sword moms in the world. I'm finding it hard to say exactly what I liked about it because it was kind of everything. Everything was just very well done. From like, the world building is intense, but very well executed. And I don't want to give anything away, so I'll just say that I highly enjoyed it, and I would recommend it, especially if you're looking for an epic fantasy, and especially if you're looking for an epic fantasy that isn't, based on coded white European countries, like a lot of epic fantasy. So yeah, full 5 out of 5 stars. And those are the books that I read in April. I know it's quite a short list compared to previous months. I started the month not in a super reading mood, and then The Sword of Kaigen was very large and took me a little while to get through. As always, let me know what you thought of these books down in the comments. Are you looking to read any of them? Have you read anything of them? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Let me know. You can find me over on Instagram at Leia Like the Princess if you want some cosplay, writing, acting, and kitty cat content. You can also find my store on Instagram at Moonlit Cat Creations, or you can go to the website directly at moonlitcatcreations.com, where I make embroidered decorations, pretty skirts and dresses, and watercolor paintings. Links for all of those will be down below if you're interested. Until next time, stay cozy.